Sar had always imagined her wedding in Pottekkatt as the pinnacle of elegance, a day when the city's elite would gather to celebrate not just a union, but a spectacle of wealth, love, and tradition. Yet that night, just hours before the ceremony, her carefully constructed dreams crumbled before her eyes as she walked into a scene that would forever haunt her memory. Daniel, her fiancé, the man she had trusted with every secret, every hope, every heartbeat, was locked in a passionate embrace with someone from her inner circle, someone whose presence she had never questioned, someone who had crossed the invisible line into betrayal. And as she stood frozen in the doorway, the ambient music from the city outside, the distant chatter of party preparations, even the faint scent of her white jasmine bouquet seemed to blur, leaving only the vivid, horrifying image of her lover's lips on another woman's, a kiss so consuming that it left Sar trembling, her mind racing with disbelief, rage, and sorrow all at once. Yet in that moment, she made a choice that would define her strength and resilience, deciding to conceal the torrent of emotions threatening to spill, to wear the mask of the radiant, composed bride the world expected her to be, because surrendering to despair would give power to the betrayal and tarnish her dignity. So she retreated silently, finding a quiet corner where she allowed herself a brief, trembling breath, memorizing every detail of the betrayal, not for revenge yet, but to remind herself of the truth that only she would carry. And as the hours passed in sleepless contemplation, she rehearsed her smiles, perfected her gestures, and mastered the composure needed to face not only the cameras and guests, but also Daniel, who was blissfully unaware that his secret had been discovered. And when the morning sun cast golden streaks across the Pottekkatt skyline, Sar emerged in her gown, adorned with sparkling gold jewelry reflecting the city's lights, her veil flowing elegantly. Every step down the aisle a testament to the courage of a woman who had been wronged yet refused to crumble, waving at guests, offering a radiant smile while internally cataloging her strategy for the days to come, knowing that each graceful nod, each polite word, each measured laugh would be part of a larger plan to reclaim control over her life and make Daniel understand the consequences of his deceit, all while the city applauded a perfect union that to everyone else seemed unblemished. Yet Sar, poised, elegant, and calculating, carried a secret that would soon unravel Daniel's carefully constructed world, revealing betrayals, testing loyalties, and proving that in Pottekkatt, while appearances were everything, the truth wielded power far greater than wealth, influence, or charm. And she vowed silently that although the cameras captured her flawless smile and the guests marveled at the spectacle, she alone would decide the timing, the manner, and the extent to which the truth would resurface, turning heartbreak into authority, humiliation into strategy, and betrayal into a lesson that no one would forget. The morning after the wedding, Pottekkatt woke to the picture-perfect facade of Sar as the city's most radiant bride. Yet behind the smile lay a storm that Daniel could not comprehend. For the man who had once believed himself the center of her world now found himself navigating a home transformed into a battleground of silent punishments and icy stares. Sar moved through the house with the precision of a general, setting rules without explanation, insisting that Daniel's every gesture be measured, every attempt at conversation met with polite but firm indifference. And when he tried to approach her, to apologize for actions she had yet to reveal. She would slip past him with grace, leaving him bewildered and alone. His calls unanswered, his gifts ignored, and his pleas for intimacy met with cold distance. While the city outside celebrated the wedding he thought had solidified his life, inside their luxurious Potticott apartment, Daniel felt the first pangs of fear, a sensation unfamiliar to a man accustomed to control. For the woman he had vowed to love now commanded power in silence, enforcing her presence without words, making him sleep on the sofa while she occupied the bedroom in complete tranquility, dining apart from him, letting him prepare his own meals despite his utter incompetence. And every evening, as he attempted to reconcile with her, he was met with the silent judgment of a wife who had catalogued his betrayal in ways he could never guess. Yet Sar's coldness was not born of whim but of strategy. Each ignored gift, each withheld smile, each moment of absence was a calculated reminder that trust, once broken, was not easily restored. And Daniel, floundering in the unfamiliar waters of fear and regret, attempted to reach out to her mother, hoping for insight, only to be met with cryptic advice that emphasized patience and the inevitability of truth, leaving him more confused and desperate. While Sar's mind worked tirelessly, observing, planning, and waiting for the right time to expose every secret, to turn the tables on a man who had underestimated her resolve. And as days blurred into nights, the city's skyline, visible from their apartment, became a silent witness to a woman turning heartbreak into authority, teaching a lesson that could not be spoken aloud but was written in every measured movement, in every gaze that Daniel could not read. And though the world continued to see the glamorous bride, the laughter, and the perfect social appearances, the quiet tension in their home was a war that only Sar could wage, a war of patience, intellect, and unyielding dignity, proving that in appearances could deceive, but the silent heart knew every truth. And Daniel, once confident, now wandered a home ruled by a woman whose smile could be warmth to the world but a sword to him. Every day a reminder that betrayal, though hidden, carried consequences far beyond immediate discovery. And Sar's calm authority made it clear that the game had only begun, and Daniel was already losing. Weeks passed in Potticott's bustling city, yet inside the walls of Sar and Daniel's luxurious home, time seemed to slow, thickened by the unspoken tension that Sar maintained with the precision of a master strategist. For she had discovered Daniel's betrayal but chose not to confront him directly, instead orchestrating a silent campaign of observation and subtle control that left him bewildered and desperate. Daniel tried everything: lavish gifts, heartfelt apologies, kneeling and pleading, promises of devotion, but each effort was met with polite dismissal, icy stares, or total indifference. And though he could not understand the source of Sar's wrath, she knew every detail of his secret, catalogued every misstep, and watched patiently as he floundered, cooking meals for himself he had never prepared, dining alone, sleeping on the sofa, all while maintaining the public appearance of a perfect husband at the city's events. A facade Sar curated meticulously, knowing that Potticott's elite thrived on appearances, gossip, and scandal, and she intended to use that to her advantage. So she secretly hired a private investigator to track Daniel's movements, capturing moments that he thought were unseen, photographs and small evidences of indiscretions that would later serve as proof of his deceit. While Daniel's own family, including his sister, remained unaware of the tension, only sensing the growing divide, and Sass's patience became her weapon, for she understood that revealing everything too soon would diminish her power and the eventual impact of the truth. Evenings in their home were silent but charged, Daniel watching her closely, searching for any hint of forgiveness, any spark of warmth, while she maintained a calm, composed demeanor, speaking to him only when necessary, orchestrating interactions with friends and family that seemed normal on the surface but always emphasized his isolation. And as the city outside celebrated weddings, business deals, and social soirees within the walls of this porticoed mansion, a woman turned heartbreak into strategy, quietly teaching a man that betrayal had consequences far beyond immediate discovery, that patience, observation, and silence could wield power greater than confrontation. And Daniel, desperate for clarity and reconciliation, could not see the depth of SAR's plan, failing to realize that every cold glance, every withheld touch, and every measured action was part of a blueprint to reclaim control over a life that he had nearly destroyed. And as the nights grew longer, Sass's resolve strengthened, each shadowed corner of their home a reminder of secrets kept and plans forming, until the day arrived when the careful web of observations, photographs, and patient calculation would finally be revealed, exposing truths that Daniel had tried to hide, demonstrating that impudicate appearances could deceive, but no deceit could withstand the scrutiny of a woman who had mastered both patience and perception. And Sar, elegant and commanding, remained the silent queen of her own story, poised to transform betrayal into empowerment and heartbreak into ultimate authority. Months passed in Poticot, and the city continued its rhythm of luxury, gossip, and celebrations. But inside Sar and Daniel's mansion, an invisible war raged on, one fought not with words or anger, but with patience, strategy, and carefully timed revelations. For Sar had meticulously documented Daniel's betrayals, and now prepared for the moment that would expose every hidden truth. And on a seemingly ordinary afternoon, she invited Daniel's sister, Diane, into the house under the guise of reconciliation, knowing full well that the sister had remained unaware of Daniel's secret life. And as Diane stepped across the threshold, the elegance of SAR's composure did not falter, her smile welcoming yet her eyes harboring secrets that would soon shatter illusions. And Daniel, clueless of the impending confrontation, watched nervously as Sar guided Diane to the living room, where every detail of the setup was designed to maximize impact. And then, with deliberate calm, Sar revealed photographs and evidence of Daniel's clandestine affairs, showing Diane images that captured Daniel and another woman, intimate moments that could not be denied. And Diane's initial shock gave way to horror as the reality of Daniel's betrayal sank in. The silence, heavy, broken only by SAR's measured voice, explaining how she had patiently observed, recorded, and waited for the perfect moment to expose the truth. And as Diane's expression turned from disbelief to anger, Daniel stumbled, trying to defend himself, claiming misunderstandings, pleading for forgiveness. But SAR's plan left no room for excuses, and the tension escalated to a climax as Diane confronted her brother, realizing that the man she had trusted and admired had lived a life of deceit right under her roof, while Sar remained composed, a pillar of control and authority, watching as the lies unraveled and the consequences of betrayal finally came to light. And as the confrontation continued, messages, calls, and the inevitable gossip from Podicut's network of elite circles began to flood in, ensuring that Daniel's reputation would suffer publicly as much as privately, while Sar, calm and dignified, guided the situation with the precision of a general, demonstrating that patience, strategy, and silent endurance could achieve what confrontation alone never could. And by the end of the day, the mansion had witnessed a transformation. Diane had confronted reality, Daniel faced the weight of exposure, and Sar had proven her dominance, not through anger, but through calculated revelation, turning heartbreak into empowerment, betrayal into a lesson, and secrecy into an instrument of justice. While the city outside continued in blissful ignorance, unaware that within one Podicut mansion, a woman had mastered the art of silent power, and in doing so, she had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her authority over a man who had thought he could control everything. In the weeks following the revelation, Podicut's cityscape seemed unchanged from the outside. Yet, within Sar's life, a transformation had taken root, for she had endured betrayal, humiliation, and the silent Cold War that had tested every fiber of her being. And now, with Daniel's duplicity fully exposed, and Diane confronting her own complicity, Sar stepped into a new chapter of life. A chapter defined not by the failures of others, but by her own strength, resilience, and dignity. She reclaimed her home, reorganizing it not as a battlefield, but as a sanctuary where every object, every corner, reflected her triumph over deception. And though Daniel's pleas continued, now desperate and hollow, they fell upon ears that had learned to distinguish between empty words and true accountability, while Diane, burdened with shame and regret, withdrew to confront her mistakes in solitude. And Sar's focus turned to rebuilding herself, embracing her passions, and cultivating relationships that nurtured rather than betrayed, allowing her to become a beacon of empowerment for the women of Podicut who had watched her life in the public eye, learning that beauty, status, or marriage did not define a woman's worth, but resilience and self-respect did. The city that had once celebrated her wedding now watched in awe as Sar emerged from heartbreak transformed, hosting gatherings not for approval but for joy, investing in her ventures, creating opportunities for herself and those around her. And Daniel, once a man of control and influence, now found his empire crumbling under the weight of scandal, his name associated not with success but with betrayal, while Sar's presence became synonymous with dignity, strength, and the subtle, undeniable power of a woman who had survived deception and risen higher than those who sought to harm her. And in quiet moments, she reflected on the journey, knowing that patience, observation, and strategic silence had been her greatest allies. And as she looked out over the glittering Podicut skyline from her balcony, the city lights reflected not just wealth or status, but the lessons of survival, empowerment, and triumph that she embodied, proving that betrayal, no matter how deep, need not break a spirit. For a woman like Sar could turn heartbreak into authority, humiliation into clarity, and deception into the ultimate catalyst for growth and renewal, becoming a symbol not of loss but of victory, showing that in a city driven by appearances, the real power lay in those who endured, learned, and rose above the storm, transforming pain into influence, and leaving a legacy that no betrayal, no scandal, and no deceit could ever diminish.